Today we are talking about one of the most epic stories ever told. It's a tale of divine creation, a tragic prophecy, and a truly magnificent city that was literally lost to the sea. This is the story of Dwarka, the legendary Golden Kingdom built by Lord Krishna himself, which met a mysterious and absolutely devastating end.
So right off the bat, here's the big question, the one that people have been asking for thousands of years. How does a city built by a god no less, just vanish? Was it some kind of natural disaster, a direct act of divine will, or was it something else? The final, unavoidable chapter in a story that was set in motion by pride and grief. We're going to unpack all of it, the curses, the chaos, and the city's last traumatic moments.
But look, before we get to the end of the story, we have to understand the beginning. To really feel the scale of this loss, you need to see just how incredible Dwarka was in its prime. For 36 years. Think about that. For 36 prosperous, golden years, Lord Krishna ruled over this city. And for his people, the Yadavas, this was a true golden age. For over 3 decades, they lived in a state of pretty much unparalleled peace and wealth, all under the protection of their divine king.
What's really interesting is that Dwarka was basically born out of a crisis. Krishna had to move his people from their home in Mathura to get away from the constant attacks of this tyrant king, Jarasandha. So he founded this new city, right on the coast, a fortress of just immense beauty and wealth. It was a true sanctuary where his clan could finally live in peace.
But this golden age wasn't meant to last, and the seeds of Dwarka's destruction, they weren't planted by some outside enemy. Nope, they came from 2 powerful curses, prophecies that predicted a terrible end from which there was simply no escape.
The first curse, well, it came from a place of just unimaginable grief. After the massive war of the Mahabharata, Queen Gandhari, who had just lost all 100 of her sons, she just unleashes all of her sorrow and rage on Krishna. She blamed him for not stopping the war, and she prophesied that his own clan, the Yadavas, would tear itself apart, and that his beautiful city would be swallowed by the ocean. And Krishna's reaction? He didn't fight it. He just accepted the curse.
Now, the second curse came from a place of pure, unadulterated arrogance. Sometime later, Krishna's own son, Samba, and his buddies, they decided it would be a hilarious prank to mock a group of visiting sages. They dressed Samba up as a pregnant woman, and then asked the sages to predict the baby's gender. It was a monumentally bad idea, and an act of disrespect that would have catastrophic consequences.
So here's where these 2 curses just perfectly and terrifyingly interlock. The sages, absolutely furious, prophesied that Samba wouldn't give birth to a child, but to an iron mace. An iron mace that would become the very weapon used to annihilate the entire Yadava clan. So you see, Gandhari's curse gave the what, the clan destroying itself, and the sage's curse gave the how, an iron mace. Dwarka's fate was now sealed.
With those prophecies hanging in the air, it was really only a matter of time. And what happened next was this tragic, unstoppable chain reaction, where the Yadavas, just consumed by their own pride, pretty much walked willingly right into their own doom.
So let's trace how this all played out. Just as the sages predicted, Samba produced an iron mace. The Yadava king, totally terrified, has it ground into a fine dust and thrown into the sea. But you can't cheat a prophecy that easily. That iron dust washed back up on the shore, and from it grew this strange, blade-like grass. The stage was now set for the final bloody act.
As the end got closer, Dwarka started being plagued by all these terrible omens. We're talking violent storms out of nowhere, rats swarming the streets, even monstrous animals being born. The whole city was gripped by this sense of dread. And Krishna, he saw these signs and knew exactly what they meant. Gandhari's curse was coming true. He even tried to stop it by banning all alcohol, but it was just too late.
The end finally came during a festival, and despite that ban, Yadavas got incredibly drunk. A petty argument suddenly explodes between 2 of their greatest heroes, Satyaki and Kritavarma, about old grudges from the Mahabharata war. Insults turned to blows, and what started as a squabble just erupted into a citywide massacre.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. This is the fulfillment of that second prophecy. As the Yadavas are fighting each other, they start grabbing that sharp-edged grass growing on the shore to use as weapons. And the moment they touched it, in their hands, that grass transformed back into iron maces, the very instruments of destruction foretold by the sages. They used them to slaughter each other until almost no one was left standing.
So with the Yadava clan completely destroyed, just as prophesied, all that was left for the divine figures who had guided them to depart. The whole mood of the story now shifts. It becomes quiet, somber, focused on the final moments of the two brothers, Balarama and Krishna.
Having watched the horrific end of his own people, Balarama, Krishna's older brother, calmly sat down and went into deep meditation. In this profound yogic state, his life force left his body in the form of a magnificent white serpent, which then slithered away into the ocean, returning to its divine cosmic source.
Krishna, now completely alone, also went into the forest to meditate. And as he sat there, a hunter named Jara was stalking nearby. He saw a flash of movement through the bushes, and mistaking Krishna's exposed foot for a deer, he fired an arrow. That arrow struck Krishna, bringing his time on earth to a close. And knowing his work was done, Krishna simply forgave the terrified hunter and ascended from his mortal form.
So the prophecies about the clan and about Krishna were now complete. But there was still one part left, the fate of the great city itself. This final act fell to the hero Arjuna, who arrived to witness this devastating aftermath.
When Arjuna got to the grief-stricken city, he received a very clear message from Krishna. Dwarka is about to go under the sea. You have exactly 7 days. 7 days to get the remaining survivors, mostly the women and children, out before the ocean comes for the city.
On that 7th day, just as Arjuna was leading the last of the survivors away from the city gates, it happened. The prophecy was fulfilled. They all turned back one last time and just watched in horror as the ocean, the very thing that had once protected Dwarka, rose up in this massive surge and completely swallowed the Golden City whole, washing away every last trace that it had ever existed.
For centuries, this was just an incredibly powerful story. But, in modern times, that line between myth and reality has started to get a little blurry. Since 1963, marine archaeologists have been searching the waters right off the coast of modern-day Dwarka, and get this, they've actually found submerged ruins, ancient structures, and artifacts that suggest a huge, sophisticated city once existed, right where the legends say it did. So what's the big takeaway here? The search for the actual physical city of Dwarka is still going on. But maybe the story's real power is in its message. Is it a historical account of a real city that sank? Or is it a timeless warning about how even the greatest civilizations, the most blessed people, can be brought to ruin, not by some outside army, but by their own arrogance and their own internal conflicts? Maybe the real answer is that it's both.